just run through the 5-year history, it's not going to take that long, with about 13 prints from that very first one. Which I crammed full of faces, all taken directly from dairy days, open farm days, all taken by investigators, so none of it was hidden, which makes it more appalling because the photos were dreadful. So I crammed it full of faces just in case I never did another painting. And that's called Life Sentence, The Invisible Faces of Dairy. And then I moved on. This is called 1 in a Million, and this was my first attempt to do a more subtle comment on the farming industry. The title refers to the 2 million calves that are shot, male calves, sorry, that are shot or used for pet food or veal each year in the UK. So this emphasises the individuality of each calf in this picture, and the ear tags in the hay are an oblique reference to the Holocaust, which is an image I didn't want to overtly reference because of maybe other connotations, but if you look, you see. This one's called Gassed, another terrible title. Similarly to this one, very benign or cute image even, which subverts expectations when you know the title. This picture and this one here have both been printed on large posters and used at Glastonbury Festival in the UK for two years running now, and they were quite effective in drawing people in and then shocking them when they read the title. I wasn't there, but I had reliable reports that people were walking up, taking photos, saying how cute it was, and then shutting up. This is Best of British, and this is, I have to say, the more I painted, the more I gained the courage to attempt some really bleak scenes that no one else probably would. My criteria was that if I couldn't bear to look at the photograph, then these were the ones that I had to paint. It felt unbearable to me to know that these particular animals were not only dead and gone, but that no one would even stop to look at a photo of them. And so here they are, not forgotten. A very large print of this picture, the Best of British, is hung in the Vegan Life magazines in the UK, and they said it was to remind them of why they do what they do. And again, in a similar vein, Spent, The True Price of Eggs, another, I'm afraid, really dire photograph, again, not forgotten. And I think I'm right in saying that while I was still working for the company I was working for, this got the most views on YouTube of all videos, 30,000 views, which is heartening and a bit weird. This meat, an image that is very close to my heart. I avoided doing it until I was certain that I could actually make it work artistically. Taking the photos for this in the meat aisle of my local Tesco supermarket, I was stopped by 3 different members of staff asking what I was doing. So I played dumb and I said I was a student doing a project. And for me, afterwards, it made me very angry. It was a truly mad moment to be surrounded by people picking up all these packets of muscles and guts and bones and to take them home and eat them. And yet I was the one that was being questioned for apparently doing something quite odd because I was looking at the scene in a different way. But if you think how surprised they were that I was standing there with the camera, how much more appalled they'll be if they knew I was doing this. This is called The Ties That Bind. This was an attempt to step away from the usual type of animal rights image and try to encapsulate a big idea in a simple, aesthetically pleasing way to intrigue the viewer, not to repel them. It's a pastiche of a 19th century farm animal portrait. The figure appears to be tied to the cow, but the rope isn't knotted, if you look closely, and he could release himself at any time. So it symbolises a self-created and a purely imaginary dependency on animals. And these are my own personal photographs from now on of the animals, so I've actually, I feel very personal about the ones I paint to be the exact ones that I see. Thank you. This is called Daigo. I worried about doing this one, as it's very difficult not to appear sexist or exploitative when you use female nudes. But this ended up as such a degrading and sad image, I don't think there's any danger of this being misconstrued. In one of my earliest paintings, which is on display over there, I depicted newborn babies in hay with markings of Holstein cows on them, on their skin, and cattle ear tags in their ears. And I wanted to show those same babies grown up into adulthood. I knew it wouldn't be a popular picture, and it wasn't. It was inspired by the origins, it's called Daigo. It was inspired by the origins of the word dairy, which I found out comes from the Old English word Daigo, which means female servant. So it couldn't have been more apt, and the minute I found that out, I thought, oh no, I'll have to do it now. This is from a series of 3 pictures, again they're in my portfolio over there, called Marketing Myths. I wanted to just simply connect the dots up between the ridiculous infantile cartoon imagery used by meat industries, dairy industries, and the cold hard reality of abattoirs. So this is part of the set 3, as I said, showing the cartoons being killed. That's all I had in my mind. But interestingly, I found this the most upsetting series personally to do, and I guess it's because I am the same as almost all of us then. I'm really affected by the imagery. You feel a strange sense of comfort when you see it, even though you don't want to. You've been surrounded by it since you were born. I hope the next generation do not feel that way and see the light immediately and don't need to look at things like this, because these are truly horrible images. So I did 3 and that's it. I don't need to do any more after that. And finally, this is called Misery, and this is called The Suffering. And I've just recently done these. Everyday life down on the farm, that's all I wanted to paint. And it makes it more appalling that this is just everyday life. Just wanted to choose a normal scene, nothing particularly bloodthirsty or terrible, but terrible nonetheless. And I waited 5 years to get good enough to attempt painting, just technique-wise, so I could achieve this. They mean more to me than anything, these 2. Spent a lot of time with these creatures and tried to make each one, well, they are individuals, and tried to capture them as individuals. And finally, very finally, these were finished 2 weeks ago. I wanted to, I can see green fields from my back window where I live, and I took some photos of the cows out the back window, and when I look out the window I realise I can see green and blue and black and white cows, but I know there's blood red under all of it at the end of the line, and no one sees that bit. And it really annoyed me that we idealise our farm animals, all of us, and then we murder them. So I thought, well, I can't do any more bloodthirsty stuff, I'll just try and do something new, and I tried to do some deeply melancholy and poetic images. And these are, that's called Green and Pleasant Land. These are not superb copies, by the way. I just have to say, because it does look rather murky, but the paintings, there's some prints over there, very clearly green and red. Green and Pleasant Land, the crop, and this last piece that I've done, Journey's End, which made me terribly upset when I chose that title, because it's from a famous First World War play where no one gets out alive, obviously, and so to add it to this was just the nail in the coffin, but it's correct to call it that. Anyway, that painting, Journey's End, marks the end of my own journey so far, the latest step on my personal journey. But I have to say that I'm only one of the many artists you see around you from all over the world. As Helen said earlier, we are all standing on the shoulders of giants. We have to acknowledge that we're just the latest examples of people doing this, using their creative skills to fight for what we believe in. But we have truth, propaganda, on our side, as well as creativity, and that is both powerful and liberating. We have to remember it's powerful and liberating. And so on behalf of all the members of the Art of Compassion Project, thank you for listening.